In just 8.5 months, you managed to crack one of the world's toughest exam. 40 gold medals, 18 gold medals out of 19 subjects. So that means that you are fully involved into MBBS.
Once you start loving passionately with deep interest and you vie for it, then the whole universe conspires to let that happen.
Burning issues like violence against doctors, PGs working so hard and yet being underpaid. Did you ever face any kind of ragging in your college?
Yeah.
How many ministries have you visited after cracking UPSC? Is there any regret in your life?
That was, I think, the biggest regret, because being a medico, I think, as a bureaucrat, your impact is over 1 million plus with probably the single stroke of a signature. So that's the impact that I wanted to really create. And
Did you think about giving up? Before we start, I would like to request each one of you that, guys, please hit the subscribe button, because today we are going to get a very distinguished guest. When I start talking about his achievements, truth be told, that list is endless. He is a very dear friend, a student who in his own MBBS got 40 gold medals in his own curriculum, 18 gold medals in his final year out of 19 subjects. That student, that MBBS student, after his MBBS, became the national president of the Indian Medical Association. And when people thought that he might not be doing anything else, he did the impossible. He secured rank 78 in the UPSC exam. Can you imagine that? And guys, put your hands down, give an applause, because the person today we are going to talk about, the person who is going to be the guest for today's podcast, is none other than Dr. Prashanth. So welcome Dr. Prashanth to the Nachiket Bhatia Show.
hello, sir.
It's an honor to actually have you here.
The pleasure is totally mine.
So Dr. Prashanth, I just want to know, the moment you got the result, you got to know the result, what was your first reaction?
So it was basically outside when the results actually came, and we had this Telegram group which showed the notification. So I was a little curious to know if really the PDF had come out, the Holy Grail PDF as they call it. And once I just looked up the PDF, my emotions and thoughts probably went into searching my name. So I just typed out my name and it went and stood at 78. But then I just wanted to be doubly sure. So I looked up my roll number as well, and it was mine. So I was on cloud 9 when I saw that. And it did take me a moment to, come to reality that fine, the result PDFs come and probably I've got an AS 78.
And there's a very interesting story, guys, of that number 78. And I would like to actually request Prashant to tell us that anecdote.
So, like my friend from Gujarat, so we were having a conversation a day before the results came, and he'd asked me to guess rank, so probably my rank as in, and I went on to say probably somewhere around the 70 to 150s. That's where I would probably land up. And then he asked me to give me one particular number. So I went on to say 78 then. I really don't know. It was just my intuition to say that particular number. And then he guessed that probably should be somewhere around 300s, and he just wanted me to get 78 though. And the very next day when the results came and it was 78, all of us were in for a shock, and he was like, ekdam sahi bataya bhai, kaise? So that was his reaction, and he started doubting if I really had some contacts with the UPSC. But then it was in fact way too intuition, I would say. Maybe sometimes it does happen. That's all about how life is. So yeah, it was a funny anecdote.
Trust me when I say this, it was more shocking for me that he said 78 and it was 78. So I think God was listening to you and he has actually granted you. But, of course, I would also like to know, how was your parents' reaction?
So my mom was basically at home and I was outside. So I just called her and told her, saying that I've gotten rank 78. And naturally, I really couldn't see her emotions though. But then you do realize how it is, and she was kind of speechless for a moment, and naturally she doesn't know which rank will probably fetch you the holy IAS, and I had to bring sense in saying that this is a rank which will definitely get me the IAS, and she had all blessings showering upon me. So that was the first moment and the first reaction that came from my mom. And naturally when I just went home later, the first reaction is all about seeking blessings and a literal, I would say, tears in the eyes that flows through. And that's all, I think, way natural and emotional. That's how it was. So I just lived and enjoyed the moment.
Absolutely stunning, actually. I'm sure they are over the moon that you have done something super amazing. And being an MBBS student, you have taken a very different approach to life. And I'll tell you guys that if I talk about, I'm going to repeat this part, if I talk about how much involved Prashant is into extracurricular activities, because that list is never ending. And I would like you to tell our audience that apart from being an MBBS student, what all things you were doing, because everything that Prashant was doing requires a lot of time and effort. So I would actually request you for that.
So I think apart from the cliche aspect of academics, which involves about doing our university exams and papers and maybe prepping for NEET PG, I think I wanted to explore the other facets of medicine as well. And of course, life is not just about even medicine or academics as a whole, and it needs to be about extracurriculars, leadership activities, and I think that's what even UPSC expects. So with respect to the leadership front, I think I've been part of the IMA as the national convener. So it's the Medical Students Network that I was the national president of, and then I've been part of the UNESCO Bioethics Council again as its national president, the Students Network Organization of India again, so for which I was again the national president. So these were three organizations being at the apex position, and few other medical organizations as well, of which I was the regional director, the state director, and various other capacities across my MBBS tenure. And apart from the leadership positions, I think I enjoy, doing swimming, chess, and of course I do watch soap operas, so that's how I while away time. And yeah, and apart from all this as well, I've been to different conferences as part of cultural, so I do sing. And with respect to academics, apart from our university exams, I think I've been the co-author for a family medicine textbook by the Academy of Family Physicians of India. So that was a great opportunity that I got with the author of the textbook. So it's for the family medicine postgraduate diplomates, post MBBS. So that's one. And then I've gotten the NTSC KVPY scholarships, which is part of the government of India. So and the MedEngage Metropolis scholarships as well. So that's again given in the MBBS. So I think quite a lot in my bag that I can claim or be happy about.
And this is after he has got 40 gold medals in MBBS. So I think it's quite depressing for me to sit here and ask you questions. But I'm really, really proud of you, Prashant. And Prashant has been a student of Bhatia in his foundation years, third and final year. So I can very well say that I've seen his journey grow from a studious student, a curious student, to a brilliant IS ranker here. So I'm very happy to be a part of that journey. So, I'm going to ask you the cliche question here. I mean, after MBBS, how did you decide to enter into UPSC? I think every medico in the whole world wants to know this. क्या आया ऐसा दिमाग में कि यूपीएससी किया जाए?
So this is kind of the question, which is very cliche, and I mean not just fellow medicos or maybe people out there in the UPSC fraternity, but I think the interview board is equally curious to know this. So I think having faced this question, I've had this thought process maybe even before class 12. So that's where I think I see myself from. And in the class 12, I think you needed a graduation degree to pursue the UPSC. That's exactly what I knew about the UPSC, nothing more. So having to pursue a degree and being the first doc in the family, I think having a great passion and a deep interest in medicine as well, I think I wanted to pursue medicine for the same. And having pursued medicine across maybe the 4 years, the IAS also has this motto of excellence in action. So that's exactly what I wanted in MBBS too. I didn't want to compromise on anything in MBBS just because maybe I might pursue the civil services, and time, is something that is unpredictable and you never know what's in store for the future. So that's exactly what I thought about until my final year or towards the end of final year. So we had COVID as well, and having seen the scope of the insurance schemes and the schemes that have impacted the medical fraternity per se of the government, and also those which gives you a larger impact. I think as a doctor, probably 80 to 100 patients is all that you look up, but maybe as a scheme developer, as a bureaucrat, your impact is over 1 million plus with probably the single stroke of a signature. So that's the impact that I wanted to really create, and I think I just wanted to be part of it, and that's how I chose to switch over, I think towards the end of internship, to the civil services.
So did you have anyone in your family who you looked up to who was into civil services or anything?
Well, personally, I think I had no one in the family to, acclaim with respect to the civil services. Just that my grandma was part of the Indian civil services like very long back, and then my mom was born and she had to quit. So that's the only person probably I had. But I think the inspiration more so came from my grandma, not because she was part of the bureaucracy long back, but because I think, she's been into this motive of serving the people, and I think the scope of serving the people is the largest here. So that kind of, got ingrained into me.
So you're telling me that you thought of shifting in the internship to UPSC, right? And before internship also you have performed extremely well in your MBBS. 40 gold medals, 18 gold medals out of 19 subjects. So that means that you are fully involved into MBBS. Normally what happens is if a student tries to shift his focus, they make one part suffer. But you never did that. And even if I talk about post internship, he did give NEET PG and he got 5,000 rank, and that's an extremely good rank for a person who is not focused on NEET PG. So what was the mindset? How were you managing both the aspects of your life, UPSC as well as medical?
So I think managing between UPSC and medical, I think that's not something that I ever did, to be honest. And while in MBBS, I think I really wanted to be the best in what I do. And just as I mentioned, the motto of the IA is the excellence in action. So that's exactly what I believed upon and nothing short of it. And there is no point in compromising one for the other. That's what I totally felt, and I think that's how I've always been. So handling, 2 to 3 things at a time and juggling between things. Maybe there's this slogan that jack of all trades and master of none, and probably that's what even UPSC wants you to be. So I think being really good at managing time is one thing that I've developed over the years, and I think that's what I put it across even in my life. So when it comes to managing extracurriculars and MBBS academics, I think that's what I focused upon. And UPSC, I think I kept it for a later time. Post my MBBS, that's when I started preparation, and I think I really remember vividly. So it was in the month of June that we graduated, and having finished all the documentation, it took us like August. So August 5, 2022, that's when I started, and I had like 8.5 months. So in between, I used to go for outings, I used to chill, and I used to coach juniors for medals. I think that's how I've always been. And that's not something that I'll compromise just because I wish to do something good in academics. I think, that doesn't make you any good or any better. If it is to happen, I think it will happen, and you just have to be a part of the process. You just have to trust the process one day.
I think the way you're simply putting the words here, because I can understand, but I can't even imagine that UPSC is not, I mean, the whole subject line is different. They have a very different way of thinking. And the whole 4.5 years of medicine that we actually study, there is nothing which is similar to what UPSC is. And in just 8.5 months, you managed to crack one of the world's toughest exam. I think I can't even comprehend that. So that's kudos to you, Prashanth. So the one thing which I'm again very curious, and I'm going to press this subject because I've been an MBBS student, and if somebody told me that I have to shift my complete mindset from the medical subjects to totally new subjects within a span of 1 month, and the subjects being sociology, polity, history, science tech, economics, and I think disaster management. I mean, I could not even think of doing that. I mean, within 1 month, it's absolutely impossible. How did you achieve the impossible? What was the thing that was motivating you?
I think it sounds so effortless when I say this, but then, of
Yeah,
course,
you are actually making it sound very effortless.
well, that is, of course, the component of diligence, hard work, nevertheless, and nothing comes without, shedding tears, blood, and sweat, as Lincoln calls it as well. And I think, success is all about that. It's a mix of everything, but I think it's about the proportion that differs. And I've believed always on the proportion. So I think smart work is what helps here. And I've always had this deep interest except in geography. So geography is one place where I literally suck, and I have not been, able to decode the strategy in geography. So if someone, even if one of my juniors ever had to come ask me, then probably I would never tell him a secret on geography because I never knew that. But when it comes to other subjects, I think it's about your interest in it and how fast you can probably go through it. And I think the topper talks, as they call it, have done the magic. So there have been quite a few graduates who've done this. And I mean, from the medical background, and there's Dr. Shivan, there's Dr. Atika Shukla. In fact, Atika Shukla was one postgraduate in pediatrics. So she happened to do this in the same span of around 8.5 months. So I think they have been, inspiration for me. So I'm not probably the first one, nor the last one. So that's how I see this. And it is tough. No, nevertheless, it is not the case that it is very easy, but it is nevertheless, it's not the case that you will never be able to do it. It's not impossible. That's what I'm trying to project. And this confidence, I think, needs to come in you, because if you don't believe in you, who else will? So that's exactly what I've believed in. And the very fact that I didn't want to give the prelims again, So if I ever have to give the prelims again, I'll have to study one more year, and I didn't want that to happen. So these were, I think, the motivating factors, nothing else. You get it out in the first shot, at least you are out of the cycle. Every single year you repeat, you are going to, face the music again and again.
So, guys, you have to understand this. Almost 11 lakh students apply for UPSC every year, and there's a passing percentage of only 0.1%. And the person sitting next to me has actually managed to crack that exam with just 8.5 months of preparation. So, coming back to you, Dr. Prashant, I'm sure in your whole preparation, did at any particular point did you think about giving up?
Well, I don't think any aspirant is an exception to it, and nor was I as well. Though there is this, I would say a little down kind of feeling that crops up when you do your test really bad, and maybe you flunk your tests as well. So that's when you feel like giving up, and that's mutual. I think all of us do that, and we start ranting, ki, I should have never chosen this pathway, and maybe I should have just settled with a neat PG and all that. And that was something that I did as well, and that's why the role of friends and family come into play. I think friends, family, mentors, and they've all been a really good ecosystem for me to share my feelings and rant when I need, and maybe a shoulder to, put myself down and, cry if need be as well. And at the end of the day, I really can't sob over this for more than, say 10-15 minutes, because I just have to buckle up my shoes and just start jogging. Maybe I should say racing through, not just jogging, because you need to be really fast, quick in this race. It's a rat race, and you'll have to somehow get through. So that's exactly the kind of feelings that I had as well. I'm no exception to it. But just, this point comes wherein people have this emotion of skipping the prelims, so they feel underprepared and they skip. That is something that I would not advise, because as long as you have the number of attempts, I think age is on your side, then probably you should just go through. If it's your sixth attempt, it's your last attempt, then probably, doing it twice is fine. But if it's somewhere in the first or second attempts, I think you should just go on. The fear factor is something that's perennial. It's there for the prelims, it's there for the mains, interview, and so on. But I think you just have to overcome the fear. Overcoming the fear is the most important part of this journey, and having the confidence upon you. And for me personally, I think there have been some advantages that MBBS has helped me with, because people do say, and in fact, you just mentioned in one of the questions before, that MBBS has nothing in common with the CSE journey. But then I think, the crystallized intelligence that comes through, like say, writing subjective answers in the MBBS, especially in my medal exams, I think really helped me a lot, because I didn't have to put much efforts into mains. Most of my efforts were more into the prelims, and prelims was my nightmare. So I think that's what I enjoyed doing with respect to the prelims, mains, and interview.
I'm sure it must have been more difficult for you because you chose a different path from a set one, and I'm sure people around you must be saying, "Ki, why?" I think that's the biggest, doubt people put in your brain, that are you being stupid? Why are you, leaving medical world and going towards anything else? So, did he ever have a backup plan in your mind?
Well, if you'd really ask me for a backup, I think the NEET PG or probably the next exam, and pursuing a post-graduation would have always been the backup approach. And I think that was always there. And I knew for a matter of fact that if not for UPSC, just in case, God forbid, I think I would have always chosen the post-graduation route. And that's something that I always had in the back of my mind. So I think there are graduates who find it tough to get a job. And these days, it's been the case with medical graduates as well. But for me, I was always confident that if not this, then probably the a pathway to pursuing my medical services was always there.
When you were when you gave the NEET PG exam, you got 5K rank. I'm sure there must have been pressure on you to take a seat there and then, because there's a saying where bird in hand is better than two in the bush. So, did you succumb? Were you thinking to succumb to that pressure once, even
Not
for a
really.
tiny bit?
Not really at all, sir. The reason being, I think my mom was very supportive in whatever journey I took up and whatever decision I took. So I think she never questioned, be it about MBBS or be it about my decision to take up the civil services. She's always given me a free hand, and I think even if it had been about 6 attempts, she would have still done the same. Nothing different at all. So having considered that, I think there was never this pressure. And my friends, of course, had this confidence that I'll probably be able to do it, if not in the first, at least in the second attempt, even with respect to the civil services. So I don't think I'll accept the fact that, someone ever pressured me to move towards the PGs, except my professors. Of course, that was a backing off from my professors to take up, and my own college alumni who wanted to sponsor my education at the US as well. So they wanted me to take up the USMLE, but then I was totally against both. So maybe they were the ones who were miffed up with me.
I think kudos to your brave mom, your supportive friends. Thank you so much, guys, Prashant's mom, for actually making him the IAS that, I mean, I'm going to call you an IAS right now, making him the IAS that he is right now. I think without a supportive family, dreams cannot come true. That's for sure. People around you are going to make sure that you fail. So if you have some good people around you, that's the God's biggest blessing. So, Prashant, I think every student wants to know this, and I'm sure that every person, every UPSC aspirant actually, how many hours did you actually study in a day?
So I think I never had a fixed schedule about my day, and it was always very flexible. So some days it would be 0 hours because I would literally be chilling, and in particular days I think I had a schedule where it would run to maybe even 10 hours, 8 to 10 hours max, and nothing more than that. I have never been able to personally do the 16-hour schedule as they call it in the UPSC arena, but I think it differs from person to person. It's not a rule of thumb that maybe I study for 10 hours, then someone else should either. It's all about the level of efforts that you can put in, the number of revisions, the kind of plan that you've made. I think that's where smart work helps, and your IQ as well partly. And if you're from a humanities stream, I think it again helps. Me being from a science stream, of course, double the efforts are to be put. So I think these are the factors that are involved. So generalizing it as, a rule of thumb saying it's 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day, I think I'm not up for it.
So how, and again, this is a UPSC question itself, UPSC aspirant question actually. So how did you balance theory and MCQs during that day?
So I think my focus was always on the prelims and on the MCQs because I had a few mentors who were in the service, the IPS and the IRS, and they were themselves doctors as well. So I really could relate to them better. And everyone had a common point to focus, and that was about the prelims. Because if you really don't get through the prelims, you never get the opportunity to be part of the mains or the interview. And mains is not something that you will have to do over the year. It can be done after the prelims as well, and I think that's exactly what I did as well. So my focus was always on the prelims because I was, to be very frank, scared of flunking the prelims, to be very honest. Even after I gave the prelims on that particular day, I felt I would probably not qualify, and I threw the paper at my junior's face because he was there to support me that day, and I asked him to just calculate the marks, and I left the place. To the extent that I was kind of fearful that, I'll never be able to qualify, and that's how much I was, so I would say down, depressed. I should say even depressed because I never wanted to calculate my scores. And then I gave my mental ability paper. So we have two parts to the prelims, and the GS papers is basically what's qualifying. And when I gave the mental ability paper and came back, my junior came up saying you've qualified because you're getting more than 90. And that's when I realized probably that, the mental ability paper is where I might, lose out this time because the mental ability paper, the CSAT paper was really tough this time. And I was not that prepared. So these were kind of the differences I think that I faced in the prelims, and it's not like NEET PG where you objectively know that this is the answer. Every humanities question is subjective. There might be a right answer, but I think perceptions differ, and that's how the answer differs here as well. That's exactly the case. UPSC Key and every coaching institute Valley Key has had at least a minimum of 15 questions which were different. So even the coaching institutes have gotten only 85 questions right. So they've gotten around 150 and the cutoff has been 90. So, it's been around 75. So I think that by itself tells you a lot about how the exam is and how unpredictable it is. So my focus every day, every single day was about the prelims and mains, though I think I knew for a matter of fact I can do it. So that is why I had to push it. But if you are someone who's weak about the mains, I think they should probably do the mains answer writing practice way earlier than me.
And how many mock tests did you give in a week or so?
I think when it came to the prelims, I was going insane about it. Maybe around Jan is when I started going full on about the prelims. So Jan to May, it gives me around 4.5 months out of my 8.5 months. So it's been like around 4 months that I read all the topics and revised it n number of times, maybe even 10 times of Lakshmikant for polity. And when it came to the prelims, I think every single day I used to give around 3 papers. So every single paper used to run for at least 3 hours, 1 hour of doing the paper. I used to try to finish the 2-hour paper in 1 hour. So I did basically in 50% of the time. That's how fast I used to work. And the rest 2 hours I would put on the solutions because I think working on the solutions is more important than just merely solving the paper. So that's what I did for the prelims. And every single day, 3 papers this way. I think I was going insane, really mad about it, and to the extent that I got it, paranoid and delusional about the kind of options that I was marking. So that bad I was getting into a phase, and I think that's what's needed, because at the end of the race, I think I solved at least 10,000 questions. So that is how much practice I think is needed, as long as, again, it depends on one's comfort zone. But for me, I think I took up 10,000 questions, and mains was relatively an easier game for me.
So, Prashant, I've seen that movie 12th Fail. Loved that movie, by the way. So, I've seen Manoj Kumar basically going into that interview, and I can see people sitting across the table, spread around, and then the person sits in the middle. So, is that the same setup you see in that interview?
So I think the setup is more or less the same.
Okay.
But then the way they portray it is maybe a little different, because you of course need the spice when it comes to a movie, and it really can't be 100% true and real. So I think the actual interview differs, because they really encourage you when you talk in Hindi, and they are kind of in a race to connect with you. They basically want you to converse and connect, and it's not a matter of intelligence that you show with respect to the interview. So they really appreciate anything that you talk, and if it's in Hindi, more than welcome. So even if it's in any other regional language, you always have a translator as well. So I think these are the differences. But then, of course, the members and the chair, as they how put it across to Manoj Sharma, I think that's exactly how it runs, in the real interview as well.
And do you think that luck plays a bigger role, as it depends what kind of interview panel you are actually getting?
Well, if I actually were to say that, it was all about smart and hard work, then of course it's a blatant lie, because the kind of interview panel you get, and not just the interview, the prelims, the mains, every single point, I think you need to be really lucky. And I think I've been lucky as well. So I would say probably 10% of luck is definitely involved, be it the interview panel or the prelims and mains.
Yeah, actually, I believe in that too, because every time a student comes to me, "Ki, sir, is it 100% hard work?" I always say 1% God's blessing.
Exactly.
That one sprinkle of salt is always required to make the dish perfect. And without his or her blessing, nothing is possible.
Totally.
So, Prashant, there is something called law of attraction. So, did you, in your earlier days, initial days, ever manifest that you are going to become an IAS someday?
Well, I've really never thought about that. Like, to be honest, I mean, too deep. But then, of course, I wanted to be one. And I think there's this quote in The Alchemist as well, which Paulo Coelho quotes, saying that, once you start loving passionately with deep interest and you vie for it, then the whole universe conspires to let that happen. And I think that's the same case that happened with me as well. So I'm totally grateful to the Lord and the Almighty for that. And of course, my parents and family, friends, and my mentors and ecosystem as well.
I can actually relate to this quote from Shah Rukh Khan actually, कि एक बार तुम किसी चीज़ को शिद्दत से चाहो, पूरा कायनात जुड़ जाता है तुम्हें उस चीज़ से मिलवाने के लिए. So I believe if you love something from the core of your heart, there's nothing, no force in the whole universe which can actually stop you meeting that dream. So I think law of attraction, manifestation, whatever we can call it, it actually works, because your mind is subconsciously just pushing you to reach that goal. Prashant, moving back to your MBBS journey right now. So was there any such thing in MBBS which maybe you did not like, or which actually forced you to move into UPSC? Because I'm sure there are several things right now where people are actually fed up of and they are moving to different branches. What was yours?
Well, I think the subject of anatomy was what I'm quite afraid of. But then that's something within MBBS. But if it's about the changes that I wanted to make, I think there's this quote of Gandhi again, which says, be the change that you want to see in the world. And I think I totally believed on it as well. And when we talk about the deficiencies in the system, there's nothing much that as a doctor that you can do, because the system has to be in place. And when it comes to this, I think as a bureaucrat and as a doctor, I think when you have to play the dual role, I think we kind of get to understand the system better and make changes appropriately. So that's the kind of vision that I have as well, and I wish to make, I wouldn't say rampant changes, but be part of the change.
I mean, as a bureaucrat, you are going to have power very, very soon. What are the changes you expect in the medical system?
So
and I'm going to rephrase my question. What are the changes you are going to bring to the medical system?
Well, there's maybe nothing too novel, but then these are some things that I've pondered over and maybe even prepped for the interview as well, because this is a question that they do ask us as to what changes that we wish to bring in the medical fraternity. And personally, like, there are three priorities that I've always had, and one was to bring the Indian medical services It's been a long sought demand,
Absolutely true.
and that's something that I really wish to do. So that's one. The second is about the opt out approach to the organ transplantation system, because we have a dearth of organ transplants, and Sweden, Germany are countries that follow the opt out approach against the opt in. So that's yet another one. And we do have a national blood donor registry as well, but what we don't have is the rare blood donor registry. So I think these are certain flaws that I could check up, and probably I want to do, I would say enhance the system. So these three things, I think that has always been at the back of my mind.
And what about the burning issues like violence against doctors? I mean,
Well,
PG is working so hard and yet being underpaid. I believe that these, I mean, of course, I would request you that once you get into the position of power, do think about these issues also.
these are things actually that that I've been able to take up as a medical student on behalf of the IMA with the government as well, with the NMC as well. And I think we've been able to make positive changes. And one such change was the circular from the NMC, which spoke about mental health. And recently there was a notification that 37,000 students were affected with mental health issues. And with every single day, the NMC has been taking steps in this regard. And I think there has been a change in the mood and the mindset of the government to take up such issues. And even before I become a bureaucrat, I think we'll find solutions to these. So these are solutions. I mean, the problems that I mentioned, I think those are the ones that I'll take up as a bureaucrat firsthand. But nevertheless, if we don't see the light of the day, these will again be my top priority.
Absolutely. I mean, I always believe that the postgrads, the JRs, I mean, of course, the SRs, they should have limited working hours.
Totally.
They are being made to work 36 hours, 48 hours. That's humanly impossible. And yet, of course, I can't talk about their pay because they're heavily underpaid. So I think these are the things where actually the government needs to put in a lot of efforts. And violence against doctors,
Absolutely.
this should be a big time criminal offense. And the government should take such hard steps so that nobody even thinks in their mind to ever think about going and, I mean, slapping a doctor. That should be the harshest of, crimes.
Steps,
This is
definitely.
what I always believe.
We've always had the Central Health Protection Act, the demand for it being raised across the hospitals. And I think we've also invoked the Disaster Management Act during COVID. And I think these have been temporary provisions, but what we need to do is to institutionalize these as permanent provisions. And whatever fast share of support and role that I can play, I'll be more than glad to do it.
And little bit of stability in the NEET PG and next.
Definitely.
I think this is going to be a request of everyone in the audience that next कब आएगा ये सबसे बड़ा सवाल है आज का.
Truly, truly.
So talking about your MBBS days again, so how was your senior junior bond? Did you ever face any kind of ragging in your college?
I think, like it's been the best ever phase, I would say. Until date, MBBS is something that I vividly recall, and especially the first year, because you're absolutely new, fresh meat from school. And that's, when you start getting into being maybe from a boy to an adult, a man rather. So I have really good experiences with seniors and juniors, and in fact the 13 batch has been the closest that I've had in seniors, and juniors the 21, 23 batches as well, 20 as well. So these batches, until date I connect with them, we go to each other's marriages, and it's been even, with juniors, I think for the medal exams I've been able to help them out. So and apart from all this, we do chat a lot more about what we do apart from medical school, about different families. We've been to each other's functions. So this is the lighter part of the senior junior relationship. And ragging, of course, the hona hi hai. Without that, how do you have memories? And we've done crazy stuff as part of ragging. Maybe not even stuff that I can tell on camera, but then these are the memories that I can recollect until date, and those are the seniors that I really bond with. And I feel that is a really good way of interaction, unless and until it goes into physical abuse. So that's the end point, I think. So most of the ragging that happens these days is all about masti and interaction. It's not about the physical abuse that existed long back. So I think this is, I would say, healthy interaction.
So Prasad, you are going ahead and attending friends' marriages. When do you plan to get married now? I think you have achieved the highest possible segment there is in the Indian household. I mean, you're an IAS now. There's nothing above that. I think next is the Prime Minister only. But when can we hear the news of Prashant getting married? And I need an invitation, all right?
Nevertheless, you'll be the first one to be invited. So, well, this is something that probably I will not be able to decide on my own. And we never know what life has in store. So
True.
whenever things are destined to happen, I think it'll happen in due course.
Yeah, I hope you get married soon, because why should we have all the fun here? So Prashant, I know that amongst the top 100, you were the only student who had chosen medical science as optional. Being an MBBS student, I can understand that's an obvious thing. But normally people do not do that. Even doctors do not do that. So what made you go ahead and choose medical science as optional subject?
I think the trend towards medical science has totally changed, and there are doctors who choose anthropology more than medical science because medical science is like very average or maybe poor scoring, and that is voluminous. But I think my thought process behind choosing the subject was more because it was basically a cost benefit analysis, and I think I focused more on the general studies papers because it was medical science, and hardly like 15 days to 20 days across the year is all I gave for it, which probably no medical graduate would even believe doing. And I think it was about the notes, I would say the stronghold that I had on the subjects that helped me, because having had 40 gold medals, and if I ever had to explain saying I never chose medical science, that's the hardest part in the interview. I don't think any answer would convince. So having given a deep thought about all this, that's when I think the DBMCI notes as well came handy towards the medical science prep, because at the end of the day you need really short, crisp notes, and I could do my prep based on those notes. The foundation course again helped me, have a grasp of the subjects, and I think it's all about the stronghold in the subjects. If you're like really confident about doing medical science, I think you should go ahead with it because you can always put in more efforts into general studies. So that's my total thought process about medical science as a subject.
I can understand, because when we make notes, it's all about making it crisp, short and crisp. And I'll tell you a part here also, that even an academy partner, Roman Saini, so before he went into UPSC, he was a Bhatia student also. So he also used Bhatia notes while he was preparing for UPSC. We had a very wonderful conversation, but before we actually end the podcast, I'm going to have a little bit fun with you, Prashant. We are going to have a rapid fire. And my first question to you is, what was the happiest moment in your life?
Well, I think it's been just different points, because when I entered MBBS, it was the very fact of entering MBBS. And then secondly, like when I graduated with the 40 medals, yes, that's been happy. Third, the UPSC moment as well. So I think there have been different points when I've been really happy about it.
How many ministries have you visited after cracking UPSC?
Well,
Because
quite a few.
whenever I call you, you are either exiting a ministry or entering a ministry.
हाँ सरकारी अफसर है अब तो होना ही है. So of course I've been part of the different ministries, both in the state and the central level. I mean, just with the greetings part, so nothing else. Yeah, I've been through finance, health, defense, external affairs. Yeah, just people whom I knew and they just wish me.
Are you loving the celebrityhood?
Naturally, who doesn't want to?
Is there any regret in your life?
Well, maybe not a very specific regret, but then yes, the loss of my grandmother was I think it was a jolt, because that happened during COVID and it was due to cancer, and I was not able to pick up the cancer early. So that was, I think, the biggest regret, because being a medico, I think I really needed to have, but yeah, I just think that was how it was destined, and today maybe in heaven she should be really happy about what her grandson has done.
I'm sure wherever she is, she's super proud of you and always, showering you with her blessings. Okay, so what's your secret study snack?
Well, maybe just
I mean, by the looks of it, I don't think you eat anything.
well, nevertheless, it's never been a snack per se, but maybe a cup of buttermilk.
Okay, what's your favorite food?
Nothing, to be honest. I'm not a foodie at all. Just that I try different cuisines, but of course, nothing very specific. Maybe sweets.
Okay, favorite soap opera?
Dior Bati Hum.
Sorry?
Dior Bati Hum.
What's your go-to stress buster?
Soap operas.
Love it. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Night owl.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Any superstitions you believe in?
Nothing per se, just that I pray to the Lord and I just leave whatever it is. So that's all it is. If you call it faith, it's faith. If not, superstition.
Any quirky study habit you swear by?
Well, again, nothing very specific, but then I think I've always believed on smart work. And that's about decoding, the nuances in it. If there's a shortcut, that's all about it.
If you were a superhero, what would be your catchphrase?
Do it at once.
Oh, nice. You have got more gold medals than Michael Phelps, and now you have a UPSC rank as well. So what's your victory dance?
Would they do in FIFA?
Okay, you are a PS5 guy.
Well, I would love to.
So you are an Xbox guy or PS5 guy?
Neither.
Okay. So you like sports?
I don't really follow, but then yes, I do love to follow chess alone. If
Oh,
it is.
nice. I'm sure that you have seen that young prodigy that has come by.
Could be Pragnananda's as well.
Yeah.
That's what I look up every day.
Okay, and a final message to all our viewers that if they are thinking about of chasing a dream, but they're stuck in the same regimen that the society has formed for them, what should be that one? What should be that message for them?
I think they really shouldn't care about what the society thinks because at the end of the day, people can ask you if you're married, if you have a job. There are 1,001 things that the society is bothered about, but I think it's all about altered morals. You just have to, focus on what you're doing, have faith and confidence in you, work smart and hard, and I think the rest is all about destiny and fortune that's, put up by the Lord. So that's all that I would, put up as the end message. And there's this quote, no mercy, no pain, and no weakness that comes in the Karate Kid, and I think I go with the latter two. There's no pain, there's no weakness that you really need to think about, and you just have to focus on your strengths and work on it.
Absolutely wonderful, Dr. Prashant. I believe what we have witnessed today is nothing less than a miracle. You have performed the impossible. I wish you nothing but the best, and I'm really, really proud of you.
Just hope to see myself probably for the second time in the India Book of Records.
Absolutely, you would be doing that. You would be achieving everything that you have ever dreamt of because I have not seen a more dedicated person than you. And you are absolutely convincing. You have convinced me to start preparing for UPSC now.
Well, I think it's all heaps of praise that you've showered on me, but I think it's always about the astute determination and dedication that you need to show in whatever endeavor you take.
Absolutely.
And I think you are one fantastic idol that I look up to as well. So being part of my journey, I think I have
Thank you so
deep
much.
gratitude for you as well, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
So thank you so much everyone for watching the podcast. I hope you liked it. If you have any comments or feedback for us, please drop those in the comment section. Who would you like to be the next guest for the podcast? I would be looking forward to your suggestions in the comment box again. And if you have not subscribed yet, please like, subscribe and share. Make this man as wild as you can. Thank you so much. Best of luck. God bless.